Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing visa agents quoting fees for services without even reviewing a case. And what are we talking about here? Well, we see this a lot. I see this a lot in the U.S. immigration context, and I see it a lot in the Thai immigration context. And you'll see people who say, well, I saw it somewhere that so-and-so is quoting this amount to do this kind of visa. Or I called them up and they said, yeah, I can do this. And I often ask, well, did you talk to them in a U.S. immigration context, especially, did you talk to them about your history, whether or not you had a criminal history, arrest history, whether or not your significant other, in the case of like fiancé and marriage visas, has any type of illicit history? Did you talk about anything having to do with your prior history for applying for an American visa? And oftentimes they'll say, no, they just told me it's all okay and I can just apply. Well, those things have a tremendous impact on your ability to apply for an American visa of many different categories. And for purposes of this video, I'm talking kind of more narrowly about fiancé and marriage visas, but they can have an impact, especially criminal history on the part of a petitioner or a beneficiary in a family-based context can have a tremendous impact on whether or not one can be deemed admissible to the United States. And we've gone into detail on this channel many times. We've got videos on inadmissibility, waivers of inadmissibility, etc. At the same time, I also see this in the context of Thailand. And actually, for me, because I'm kind of used to all the fakes in the American immigration context, for me, the Thai situation seems a lot more ominous because, one, I'm not as used to it in the sense that Thai immigration has changed a lot since the promulgation of the emergency decree back in March and the situation that has evolved since then. Thai immigration is hard, and dealing with matters pertaining to Thai immigration are not just some straightforward endeavor in filling out some forms and just throwing them at an immigration officer. That isn't how it works, especially in the context of non-immigrant visas. And the other thing is, a lot of folks find themselves in really precarious circumstances because they will have entered Thailand on, for example, a tourist visa and they want to stay longer. Or they've entered Thailand on an exemption stamp and they want to stay longer. Well, in the past, border runs were an easy fix. That's really not a viable option for most people now. Meanwhile, immigration policy remains in place where sort of the presumptive paradigm, if you will, the presumptive default position of immigration is those who are in Thailand on an exemption stamp, tourist visa, non-immigrant visa, all those folks are considered temporary. So if you want to change status, the presumption is you need to leave the country, get a new visa, and come back. Again, not a viable option for most folks. So when I see folks that are telling me, well, I found this for this price, and this isn't a video where I'm trying to denigrate people on price. That's not my point. My point is you could end up costing yourself a lot more money by trying to save money on the front end by utilizing somebody who hasn't even reviewed your situation. And again, depending on the circumstances of your case, over this past summer, we had some really nettlesome situations to the point of being almost impossible. Now, ultimately, we were able to find solutions for pretty much everybody we dealt with. In fact, everybody we dealt with over the summer. But it wasn't easy. And it definitely didn't operate like it did a year prior. It definitely didn't operate like I presume it'll operate in the years to come. Especially right now, I think this is more pertinent than ever. You really need to be talking to somebody, anybody that's just going to quote a case number, quote a case fee without even talking to you, without even looking at your case, looking at your passport, seeing exactly what it is you're trying to do here in the kingdom. Without understanding that stuff, yeah, it may be a substantially reduced price from what you may presume somebody else may do. I have a lot of people call us and they think we're going to charge a huge amount associated with their case, and it turns out it's quite nominal. In fact, it's to the point where they kind of say, wow, I never would have thought it'd be that low. But long story short, in the cases that do have real problems, I've seen this time and time again because they end up coming to us after they've really had a bad experience in other places where they've paid this bargain fee that they thought was such a bargain, and then they wade into it, and whoever was supposedly there to help them they get in above their skill level, their capability level, and they end up abandoning them because they can't get it fixed. And I often find it, especially in some cases that are unfixable, and I haven't seen that a lot lately, but I've seen it a lot, especially in the American immigration context in the past. People have told me, wow, if I would have just come to you, you would have told me I couldn't do this from the get-go. I especially see that a lot in drug-related grounds of inadmissibility. You know, again, these fake lawyers, these so-called visa agents, especially in an American immigration context, they'll just say, oh yeah, no problem, we'll fill out the forms, put it through, no problem at all. Well, long story short, they had a ground of inadmissibility that might not be waivable. And when that's discovered months down the road, after that money's long gone, you know, they find out they can't do anything, and that person oftentimes either stops answering their phone or is nowhere to be found, and that bargain they had ultimately turned out to just be a ripoff. So again, I'm not here to denigrate anybody for doing business. That's not my point. But my point in this is you need to proceed with caution for anybody who's going to tell you exactly what the cost of a service is, especially in the immigration climate we're in, both in America and in Thailand. You need to proceed with caution for anybody who just throws you out a flat rate without ever even looking at your case.